again, as the title of the presentation indicates, reform is really driving a lot of the consumerization of healthcare. And we're going to talk about what that means and how health plans and provider groups are adjusting their market approach to really focus on the consumer. And then we'll talk about what it means to truly be multi-channel and what that challenge represents in the marketplace. And then we'll talk about different strategies for acquisition, retention, and really managing healthcare. So first off, you'll see a poll in the upper right-hand question. One of our first questions here, feel free to click on the correct answer here, is what will be the leading outcome of reform and the consumerization of healthcare? So let's take a couple of seconds here. Feel free to answer the columns on the right. Number A, consumers will choose their own health plan. B, consumers will spend more time researching health plans. C, consumers will seek out tools that will allow them to identify preferences by location and other criteria. And D, members will be more engaged with their providers and treatment. So take a second here. It looks like 33% of the poll is answered with B. Consumers will spend more time researching their health plan. So this is great. This is part of the Affordable Care Act is really causing consumers to take an interest in their health care like never before. So let's talk about reform and some of the changes that are taking place in the marketplace. So reform in the Affordable Care Act is obviously driving major change across the landscape. The old way of communication is dying. For many of our payer customers, growth is a key objective. They have informed consumers. They want to look at agent and broker and leveraging that network to drive member engagement and to drive enrollments. And also member retention is becoming a key objective. So how do you protect that market share? How do you make sure that your consumers are engaged with the health plan? Make sure they're engaged in getting the right type of care and the right type of option. Then also communication is going to be a key objective. So this multi-channel approach, how do you have a unified branding experience when you're engaging with your members? And then also self-service, kind of the hard benefits of providing self-service is you're offsetting call center volume, the ability to not process paper claims, electronic ID card, et cetera. So with all this consumerization of healthcare and with the 1/1/14 date really looming, how are you leveraging mobile to help you acquire the share of the 49.1 million Americans who are going to be looking for coverage, either via Medicare, Medicaid, or via shopping on their own? And there's, on top of that 49.1 million, you also have 1 in 10 employers that are intending to drop healthcare coverage. So you're going to see a number of employees. We're estimating about 5 to 10 million employees that are going to be seeking coverage on their own. So how do you really go after and leverage your multi-channel approach to capture this marketplace? Which brings us to poll question number 2. Do you currently have a plan in place to reach this uninsured population that's going to be coming into the market? Please answer A for yes, B for no. Wow, we're seeing about 60% of respondents do not have a strategy to go after this uninsured population. Interestingly enough, I was on a call this morning with a regional carrier, and they actually decided to not have a strong strategy for going and engaging this new membership population, but their strategy was to focus on retention. So getting the right types of tools in the hands of their members so that they can maximize their benefit. Looks like it shifted a little bit. We've got about 55% that are saying yes, that they do have a plan to reach the uninsured. So second part of the question here, what will be your primary way to reach them? So are you using television or print ads? Are you leveraging your agent and broker network? Are you leveraging SEO or web advertising? Are you deploying mobile applications into the marketplace, direct to consumer? Are you leveraging social media? Things like Facebook and Twitter. All right, I'm seeing about 42% that are leveraging agent and broker networks. And we've got about 30% that are leveraging social media, with mobile applications coming in at about 20%. Excellent. So today's conversation will really focus on there's kind of two components to approach this marketplace via SEO, via television, print ads, this really combined marketing campaign for going multi-channel. There's also a component of this that is the multi-channel technology, and that's what we'll dig into a little bit more today as we get further along the call. First off, let's take a look at the demographics of mobile in the United States. One of the things that we hear from our payer customers, and, we actually are actively engaged in setting up multi-channel center of excellences with some of the largest health plans in the country. One of the things that we hear quite often is, my population isn't using mobility, or they're not leveraging tablets. They're not using this technology because they're either low income, or they're ethnic minorities, or they're elderly. And part of the challenge that we have here at Kony is we have to actually kind of challenge our customers and say, actually, that's the population that are the higher adopters of mobile technology. So as you can see here, minorities are actually leading the way in adopting smartphone and tablet technology. Also, the demographics are changing for seniors. So the early adopters, if you read this slide from left to right, the 18 to 24 to 25 to 34-year-olds, those folks, that population, that demographic has already adopted mobility and tablet technology. They've grown up into this environment. We call them digital natives. The folks who are actually a little bit elderly are the quickest adopters. So that population is actually adopting mobile technology at a higher rate than the younger population, because the younger population is already there. So challenging this belief in, this population is not leveraging these types of tools or not using these tools is actually kind of a false conception in the marketplace. So why mobile now, or why multi-channel now? We're challenging those assumptions. 38% of seniors do use smartphones. We're actually expecting that to go up to 50% by 2014. 76% of those use it for health. Lower income individuals actually rely on their smartphone as their personal computer. So it's their way of connecting with the greater world, with their social network, with their family. It's essentially becoming their own personal computer. 45% of ethnic minorities own smartphones versus 31% of Caucasian. And 61% of all owners actually downloaded mobile health apps. So the adoption is here for multi-channel technology. Now, you have a current web strategy. What we're talking about here is not just web, but multi-channel. So the question becomes, what is multi-channel? What does that mean to you? So take a quick second here. Look at what does the term multi-channel mean to you. So smartphone. So is it the fragmentation that exists in the marketplace between iOS, Android, mobile web, Microsoft? How do you deploy it to smartphones? Is it smartphone, tablet, and mobile web? So anything that would be considered, a mobile device? Or is it smartphone, tablet, mobile web, desktop, devices, kiosks? Second here. Excellent. So 94% have, hands down, identified C as the option. And that's correct. I mean, this really is all of the above. Multi-channel is not just, mobile fragmentation that exists in the marketplace, but it's actually deploying to the fragmentation that exists on every touch point of communication you're going to have with consumers. So if I'm a consumer, we're going to talk a little bit about how the marketplace has evolved and how application development has really changed to mold and fit to consumer preferences. How do I choose to interact with an enterprise, with a company? And this is really something that evolved. If you think about how banks and travel and hospitality and some of these other industries have really evolved their marketing strategy to focus on the consumer and how the consumer is interacting with their technology. That is being transported and being brought over into healthcare. Every payer that we meet with, every health plan that we meet with these days, and every hospital system that we meet with is really interested in how they can engage with their consumers better. How do they interact with their customers? Because today's consumers are very informed and they're uncommitted. So the fact is that, if they see a better option or if they see a lower cost option, they're going to shift. They're going to move to what they believe to be a better fit for them. They're digitally empowered, they're socially conscious, and they're very time aware, they're time constrained, just like all of us are today. Now, the second piece of this that's very important is location and presence. So Now that I have access to this information, where can I get access to it? I want to be able to access information on demand. That means I can access information on my mobile device. It may mean that my automobile is a way that I can access information if I'm in transit. It could be at the clinic or the pharmacy on site where you're actually doing the point of service medical care, or it could be from your home, leveraging your desktop web or a laptop. So presence and location become a very large part of how consumers interact with enterprise. So what we've seen is a fundamental shift towards the consumer. And this has taken place not just in healthcare, with the Affordable Care Act really driving a lot of this consumerization of healthcare, but this is a fundamental shift that's taken place across industries, right? So consumer adoption is actually forcing a better user experience and a user interface. So because I choose to interact with my bank or with my health plan in a certain way, they are forced to actually build applications or build different tools that allow me to easily perform a certain task. So this consumer adoption is continuing to force a different type of application deployed into the marketplace. And if you look historically at the way that different interfaces and applications have been developed, in the past, it was built out of technology and built out of databases. So it became an extension of the existing data that you had that was pushing out to members. Well, with the evolution of the web and now the evolution of mobile, that user experience is actually starting to be defined by the consumer, by the customer. So customers and employees are demanding fast access, easy-to-use applications, and modern user interfaces to leverage mobile applications as well as tablet and desktop web. So you're really seeing an evolution in how applications and how technology is being deployed to consumers. Now, the way that we see this going is that we're going to see a path to a multi-channel approach where customers and employees are going to demand those same types of attributes on any device, anywhere, at any time. So from a productivity and from a usability perspective, we absolutely are seeing a fundamental shift in the deployment of how these applications function with consumers and employees. Now, what that's created is fragmentation in the marketplace. So you hear a lot of, fragmentation and chaos. This is the new normal. I believe I saw a statistic yesterday that there would be over 100 million deployments of tablet devices. And the tablets might be actually taking over for the next personal computer. So with the fragmentation, you're going to see tablets just continuing to emerge to market. Android, iOS, Microsoft, you're going to continue to see a number of operating systems that are going to be pushed to the market. We're seeing 43% adoption of smartphones going to 80% by 2015. Over 200 new tablets and more than 250 new smartphones will be announced globally in 2012. And new devices and form factors will continue to emerge through 2015. You're seeing this with Microsoft Surface. You're going to see it with Facebook Phone. The multi-channel headache is not going away. What that's causing is mobile application development to really start to intersect with web application development. So we're seeing a move towards a more monetized way of application development. It's going to be very consumer friendly. The focus is not multi-channel. It's going to be multi-channel, not just mobile. So consumers continue to own several cross-platform devices. I'm assuming that if we polled the audience today, that many of the participants would have an iPhone and most likely a BlackBerry or possibly an Android device on them as well, and probably an iPad. Let's talk about the different devices and the different features. One thing that we focus on here at Kony is the ability for a consumer to have the same consumer experience that they're expecting on that specific device or operating system. An example here is when I'm using my iPhone, I want to be able to pull up an application, view the calendar and the rotating wheel that I'm used to in a native iPhone function. If I'm using an Android device, I want to be able to see the calendar or the buttons that pull up in an Android device. If I'm using a BlackBerry, I want to be able to use the native functions and features that take place in a BlackBerry application. Same goes for an iPad. I want to be able to leverage the real estate in the space available to me on an iPad. And then on top of this, if you think multi-channel application development, we're introducing Windows 8. And I'm not sure if anyone on the call has been able to have a preview or to be able to play with Windows 8 that's coming out here in October. But essentially, Windows 8 completely changes the user interface, the user experience, from going from the standard start menu, from the way that you would operate Windows, to a completely rich native application type format. So you're able to swipe the screen with your hand. You're able to pull up native applications that are baked into your Windows 8 desktop. It's going to be a really reimagining of the user interface for an operating system. And that's also being deployed to Microsoft Surface. So Windows 8 really takes that next step into changing the user interface and user interaction, and also pushing it to multiple devices. So the tablet will have the same type of operating system and flow as the desktop operating system will have. So all of this fragmentation and all of these challenges that come up when you start to think about multi-channel, this creates a challenge. So from a business perspective, how do I secure brand adherence and loyalty? How do I deliver a rich customer experience that's convenient, that keeps them coming back and using my application? Also, how do I get to market quickly? How do I get operational efficiency? How do I increase profit? How do I lower some of the risks in deploying applications to market? From an IT perspective, this is where Kony plays very nicely as well on the IT side, is how do I get to a plethora of devices? How do I maximize the reach and the scope of my applications that are going to market? Do I build in HTML5? Do I look at iOS only? Do I consider Android? If I do only go to iOS and Android, am I eliminating a large piece of the market that might be wanting to access my apps on mobile devices or tablets? What about desktop web? So all of these questions start to come up. What's the consumer demand? There's many research studies that show how many devices are in the marketplace, which operating systems are preferable. How do you get to all of those consumers? And then, how do I deliver this rich UI and UX experience? How do I make sure that my apps actually have that genuine look and feel of a native experience? And oh, by the way, let's not forget the security implications, data integrity, making sure that you're compliant with HIPAA, and everything else that goes into building multi-channel applications. So a little bit a development environment that's used by our customers as essentially the core of their multi-channel strategy. So most of our customers will leverage the Kony environment to build from a single code base this application, their mobile applications or multi-channel applications. And from that code base, from one code base, they essentially run natively for all 7 operating systems. So we're deploying native applications to all operating systems, mobile web, HTML5. We're integrated with SMS, MMS, and services. We can deploy to tablet, kiosk, and social media tie-in. So from that single code base, essentially we're writing one set of code and then running everywhere, to every device. So essentially the Kony One platform is solving this multi-channel platform, this multi-channel headache that exists in the marketplace. We have an SLA that guarantees that we actually will code and we will bake in new operating systems and devices within 30 days of their release to the marketplace, to the developer community, and new devices within 90 days of their release to the market, to the developer. So how do we deploy into healthcare? And this is going to focus, the rest of the slides here will focus on the Kony healthcare market strategy. So we have 3 different ways that we deploy with our customers. I'm going to start at the bottom here. The multi-channel experience is essentially multi-channel enterprise application platform. What this means is that our customers leverage our software or our platform to do native in-house application development with their own developers. So they'll go through a training course. They'll basically be building applications on our platform to deploy multi-channel. The second way is through configurable pre-built applications. So we have a series of custom applications that are built on the Kony platform that are health plan or payer facing. So we'll get into some of those pre-built applications that are ready to go to market. Within 10 to 12 weeks you can deploy. And we've got a number of those pre-built application deployments that are in the marketplace currently. And then the third way is that if you really do want to differentiate yourself from competition and build a custom application, we have a custom professional service shop in-house that can help you to develop those custom applications and essentially build those long-term roadmap for your health plans, for your go-to-market mobile strategy or multi-channel strategy. So let's talk a little bit more about some of the healthcare solutions. What is the stage? This is the fourth poll question, everyone. So if you haven't fallen asleep on me, let's get to what is the stage of your mobile application development or your multi-channel application development you could consider. Non-existent, early stage development, currently developing, or you're deployed and live. You've got tools in the marketplace currently. Okay, I'm going to give you a minute here. Interesting. So we've got 33% are non-existent, 33% are early stage development, only 8% are currently developing, and about 25% are currently live, deployed and live. Great, so let's talk a little bit more about how you're engaging consumers. How do you get to those members or potential members that are in the marketplace via multi-channel strategy? So first of all, when we come in and we do these engagements with our health plan customers, most of the top priorities are either going to be around new revenue. So how do I reach out and really get more enrollments? With the Affordable Care Act taking place, we're actually seeing a lot of the most activity in the marketplace that we've seen since Medicare Part D happened a few years back. So how do I get out to get information, the correct information into the hand of my consumer so that they feel comfortable with my plan information, with my benefits, so that they can feel comfortable to go to an enrollment. The other piece of this is how do I leverage my agent and broker community so that they can go and explain plan benefits to consumers or to employer groups. So can I get tools out in the marketplace that will help small business or large enterprises understand the benefits and leverage these tools to maximize the health of their employees. And on top of that comes a number of post-enrollment tools that would be focused on health and wellness. So how do we get information to consumers? One of the hottest demands from consumers right now is how do I research medications and look at lower cost alternatives? How do I estimate my treatment costs? How do I estimate my out-of-pocket expense? And then how do you integrate all of these mobile applications or multi-channel applications with your providers or with your HIP or your EMR and your back-end systems, your legacy systems that exist? So in all of these challenges, we see a number of use cases that health plans would like to develop in their long-term mobile strategy or multi-channel strategy. So how do we get mobile ID cards, member ID cards? How do we do prescription management? How do we look at claims administration, wellness, adherence? How do I present my plan in the best light so that a consumer can compare plans and go through an enrollment and shop for plans? One of that might be cost estimator tools. And then we have enterprise-facing applications that focus on things like HR management, corporate internet, CRM, broker and agent enrollment and engagement. And then we have a series of provider-facing apps that are focused on the ACO model and how the continuity of care is really transferred across from provider to patient to nurse. First, I want to talk a little bit, let's go to poll number 5. Okay, what are your top priority multi-channel deployments? So we're going to allow multiple answers on this one. Member-facing application. When we meet with our health plan customers, this is primarily the first and foremost what we would consider to be table stakes. So member-facing application, mobilizing your member portal, provider application, agent, broker, or sales force enablement, B, cost estimator and benefit tools, or E, payment solutions. Please take a second, guys, and just click on what you see as the top priority. All right, member application is trending pretty well. We've got 50% that say the focus should be on member-facing applications. With agent, broker, and Salesforce enablement, following at 35%. Cost estimator is at 7%, and payment solutions is very low on the priority, not getting a single click. So let's look at a day in the life of a patient or a member through a multi-channel world. What we're deploying here is a member application. If you consider a day in the life, I'm a member of a certain health plan. I receive an appointment notification on my Android device. While I'm driving to work, I'm in a Ford that actually has the Microsoft Sync technology that's analyzing my blood pressure and my glucose levels. Well, at 10 o'clock, I have that appointment. I go into the physician. I'm in the clinical waiting room, but I'm on my iPad researching treatment options. Now, at 1 o'clock, I get to work, and I actually get on my desktop web, and I fill out a quick survey about my visit that I had at the hospital that day. Now, I check in at the pharmacy at 4 o'clock to refill the prescription that was prescribed by me, and that's actually on a Windows kiosk device. Now, by 8 o'clock, I verify that I want to research my medication and verify any drug interactions, so I use my Android device to do that. You can see here in the world that we live in that it's not enough to just deploy to one operating system or to one device. We truly live in a multi-channel world. Every patient or every member has multiple touch points that they're going to have with the health plan or with the provider. And what we are providing from Kony is essentially that same app or that same experience on any device through a multi-channel deployment. So one of the things that we do provide for our health plan customers is a member-facing application. So it's essentially a pre-built application that has all of the requirements and all the table stakes that health plans are going to want to deploy to their members. So we can deploy this in 8 to 12 weeks. It's highly customizable. It's able to deploy for iOS, Android, multiple channels of deployment, and essentially has all the connectors to link into your back-end system. One of the things that we're actually seeing a lot in the marketplace is that mobility is included, and multi-channel mobility is starting to be included in RFPs. So we're seeing about 50% of enterprise national RFPs that are going out include mobile in their RFP responses that are being requested from health plans. So it has all of those correct features, all of the functions like ID card, find a provider, all those core table stakes that you would expect to deploy to market, ready to go and fully customizable. Now let's look at the agent and broker channel. Many of our customers, as we saw in the survey actually as well, 32% of the attendees think that the agent and broker is really a way that they're going to capture this audience. So we've actually, day in the life of a broker agent, if you consider an agent receives a notification on his iPhone of today's sales calls, at home he quickly accesses the app via his desktop web to review his client list and the details of all of his visits that he's got that day. While he's on site with the customer, he leverages data on his iPad app to explain the benefit options in the overview. He can actually take them through an enrollment on that iPad app as well. So from his office, he can complete the enrollment details if he has additional information that he wants to enter. And from the consumer perspective or the new member perspective, they actually can access the welcome packet on their Windows Surface device at home. And the agent receives a status update. This enrollment has been processed, this is in process, etc. Those status updates can be pushed to his Android device. So again, you're seeing multiple touch points, multiple ways that an agent or a broker or a sales rep could interact with the consumer and have this multi-channel experience. So to support this effort, Kony has launched, again, a series of applications that are focused on agent and brokers. So how do you leverage your agents and get them usable tools that give them access to information quickly? You have a number of consumers that are entering the market. How do you maximize the productivity and keep your plan at the top of the mind of your agent and your brokers? Obviously, security and compliance is a huge part of leveraging this network. So we've taken all of that into consideration with secure HIPAA data encryption, and a secure environment for your agents to do that plan comparison and enrollment function. And actually, I saw a survey the other day that showed that 91% of agents and brokers would prefer to use an iPad or an Android application for the plan benefit overview and for the enrollment function. So again, it's leveraging right tools at the right place for location-based services to actually maximize the way that your agent and broker is interacting with that employer or potential member. Now, the third application that we are launching in the market is more focused on the ACO and the provider. So if you consider a provider experiencing the day in the life in a multi-channel world, provider could receive a notification on his most likely a BlackBerry device that's given out by the hospital. He looks at the information, sees his rounds for the day. At home, he quickly accesses an app via his desktop to review lab results. At 10 o'clock, he's doing his rounds with his iPad, discussing treatment options with the patient. From the clinic, he completes visit details and a detail of the appointments that he's been having up to date. And then he directs the patient to a hospital pharmacy, which they're going to be interacting with a Windows-based kiosk to do that interaction. At the end of the day, he might review the radiology images, EMR, and triage on his Android phone. Multi-channel approach to the EMR, getting into productivity and vital signs and different reporting that are all location-based services. And then integration with your HIT partners on the back-end systems and your legacy data systems. Now, one other thing that we're discussing and that we've been in as we look at the long-term multi-channel strategy for our customers, these are the use cases that seem to resonate the most, that continuously come up from a build perspective for a multi-channel approach. So it's not just mobilizing your portal business, but it's looking at a multi-channel approach to how do I look at HSA and Flex, how do I integrate with different devices that are in the marketplace. Do we deploy telemedicine applications with different multi-channel for telemedicine? How do we integrate social network? Looking at treatment cost estimation. How do I get the right information to my consumers or to my patients at the end of the day through a multi-channel approach? And these are some of the products that continuously come up as hot button items for our health plan customers as well as our provider groups. Now with that, I think we're complete with the presentation. I'd like to open it up for any questions and answers. I know that I moved through that fairly quickly, but we wanted to keep it, high-level overview, and we're always available for more information and for any follow-up questions afterwards. Sharon, did we have any?
Okay, one of the questions is, does the $49.1 million include the members that will be losing insurance when employers drop coverage?
So the $49.1 million is what the Congressional Budget Office is estimating for consumers that will be entering the marketplace. Now, about half of those will fall into Medicare and Medicaid, and the other half will fall into the open market. In addition to the $49.1 million, we're expecting to see about 5 to 10 million consumers entering the marketplace through a drop in coverage from their employer groups. So the estimates that we've seen in the market are anywhere between, the 55 million that are going to be searching, roughly half of those are going to be Medicare, Medicaid, and there's going to be continued churn as employers drop coverage for their employees over the next 3 years.
Another question we have is, what kind of adoption are you seeing for mobile apps versus tablet apps versus desktop web?
So let's start with desktop web. I think most health plans are seeing about a 15 to 20% adoption in their desktop websites currently, with about 40% of their total memberships actually accessing it for the first time. Now, in the mobile applications that we've deployed, looking at mobile web only, we have a population of about 3.9 million that, I'm thinking of a specific health plan actually. So one of our health plans has 3.9 million members, and they've had about 360,000 of their members who have accessed the mobile app. So it's about 10% of the population that's adopting mobile. Typically, you're going to get a higher adoption that's going to come through advertising and some of the SEO and some of the print that's really pushing the mobile app. So we're seeing about a 10% adoption rate in mobile apps for health plans.
Okay, great. Another question we have is, you mentioned the telemedicine use case. Does the Kony platform support video and or encryption?
Yes. The answer is that we support video, and we also support data encryption. So we're doing some pretty interesting applications in the market right now for telemedicine. A couple of them leverage outside technology like Oracle's video conferencing service. Some are leveraging FaceTime. Another is leveraging a company that's called Video, which is actually the technology that's underneath Google+, the video feature on Google+. So yes, the Kony platform addresses video conferencing as well as encryption.
Great. Another question is, does the Kony platform take into consideration accessibility compliance across channels?
Acceptability and compliance across channels. The answer is yes. So we take, can you say that again, Sharon, just so I'm clear on the answer?
Sure. Does the Kony platform take into consideration accessibility compliance across channels?
So I believe that what they're getting at is, I believe the question is going to be focused around HIPAA. I hope I'm answering this correctly, but yes. So usability is where handicap is definitely covered within the Kony platform and the way that we're deploying to marketplace. So we've taken into account different compliance measures for Android, for iPhone, for each of the different operating systems and platforms that we deploy into.
Actually, there's a clarification to that question, Matt. The person was referring to Americans with Disabilities Act. If that clarifies that question. The law that requires that channels be accessible to people with disabilities.
Yes. For example, things like text readers, I think is what they're getting at, is text readers and compliance that would be deployable to that disabled population. So increasing text size, being able to maximize different features for those who maybe have a vision issue, etc.
Okay, great. Another question is, are you integrated with McKesson and Epic?
So we do have some integration points. I wouldn't say that we are completely an extension of McKesson or Epic, but we definitely have customers who are currently using Epic and McKesson that we're interfacing with their web services to display data. So that's definitely part of our back-end integration with our health plan customers. And we're currently working with them as direct partners as well.
All right, and one last question. How long does it typically take to develop an app and deploy it?
So the software development lifecycle for a mobile application in the Kony process, it's a pre-built application. We're looking at 9 to 12 weeks if that's one of our vertical applications. From start to finish, if it's a very customized application, you could be looking anywhere as soon as 9 weeks, but typically the lifecycle pushes out to about 16 to 24 weeks.
Great. I think that's all the questions we have today. Did want to just let you know, Matt, there were some comments from the audience about the polling. They kind of enjoyed that